All right, so we were going to get to the Atlanta Hawks eventually during this video series, but with the news this week that Trae Young and the Hawks are going to be working collaboratively to try to find him a new phone, we might as well jump into them right now because they are at the center of a couple of different situations. So let's start by talking about Trae Young. A split between Trae Young and the Hawks was inevitable. Atlanta did not offer him a contract extension before the start of the season, a pretty clear sign that they didn't look at Trae Young as being part of their long-term future. And as this season has played out, it's become abundantly clear that this team plays better when Trae Young is out of the lineup. When he went out with the injury in late October, the Hawks went 13-9. When he came back, they were 0-5 in the first 5 games they played with Trae Young. Defensively, they're just so much better with a bigger backcourt, with Jalen Johnson operating as the primary playmaker. Trae Young remains a pretty reliable offensive guy, but defensively, he has his issues there. He is an undersized player in a league that gets bigger at every position every single year. So this was eventually coming. And now the Hawks, as we approach the trade deadline, are kind of reaching their breaking point. Like, there is a belief in Atlanta that they can make some noise in the Eastern Conference this season. We saw some signs of it when Young was out, when Johnson took over as the primary guy, when Nickeil Alexander-Walker took the starting minutes and improved that defense. So Atlanta is kind of surveying the landscape right now and trying to figure out what they can do with Trae Young. It's a very challenging player to deal for a few reasons. Number one, this is not a robust market for point guards. If you look around the NBA, there aren't a ton of teams that you would say have a glaring weakness at point guard. Certainly not contending teams, either for the playoffs or something bigger. You could look at Portland and say, all right, the Blazers, they could probably use a player like Trae Young. Minnesota, certainly, they've been on the lookout for a point guard for some time now. They could use a player like Trae Young. Milwaukee, they're kind of willing to do anything to try to make Giannis Antetokounmpo happy, so they could be in the mix for a Trae Young. So there's a finite number of teams that could be interested right off the top. Trae's size, as we mentioned, is a problem. If you're taking on Trae Young, you can expect your offense to improve, but you can expect your defense to regress. At 6'2", slight of frame, Trae Young is just not a high-level defender by any stretch. It's also difficult to move because his contract is big. Trae Young's making $46 million this season. He has a player option next season for $49 million, which, based on this season, he's very likely to pick up. And his style of play is something that I hear about when I talk to general managers. I mean, Trae Young is a very good playmaker in terms of assists, but he's a ball-dominant guy. He needs the ball in his hands to make a lot of these plays. And stylistically, he's not the easiest fit. One of the reports this week from Mark Stein had Washington in the mix for Young. And Washington does make a lot of sense. Not that the Wizards necessarily need Trae Young, even though they have certainly a need at point guard, but the Wizards are a rebuilding team. They're in a position where they can take a player like Trae, absorb that contract, and do it because Atlanta may give them back a draft pick in return. The Wizards have some expiring contracts. CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, both guys making in the low $30 million per year. Those could be the foundation of making a Trae Young deal work. And if they can entice some kind of sweetener out of the Hawks, be it a first-round pick, a pick swap, a swap of pick swaps, something to sweeten the pot, that is a deal that could make sense for the Wizards. And if you're Atlanta, you're not looking just to deal Trae Young and be done. Like, the Hawks have been in the mix with multiple different teams trying to upgrade this roster. Anthony Davis is someone that's very much on the radar of the Atlanta Hawks. If they can move off the Young contract, which is big, as I mentioned, in 2026, 2027, they can afford a player like Anthony Davis by trading maybe a Kristaps Porzingis salary, some other filler to try to get there for an AD. So for the Hawks, it's a way to move off Trae Young and also continue to get the financial flexibility to add a more substantive player to their mix. As far as Young goes, what I've been told by people around him is that he's just looking for a team that wants him. He's looking for a team that sees him as a good fit for their style of play and wants him around for the long term. It's no secret that Trae wants that contract extension, wants to be signed for multiple years. I don't think that's likely wherever he goes, but Trae, he's hoping to wind up in a situation where he's not just a stopgap, where he can be a player that helps a team in the short term, which he would in Washington. The Wizards have a very bad offense this year, very bad. But also a team that would want him to build around him for the long term. Remember, Trae is only 27 years old. He's one of the best playmakers in the NBA. He's not having a great shooting season, but he's been a pretty good shooter for most of his career. He's a 4-time All-Star. So he's hoping to find a long-term home. Unclear if he can find that before the trade deadline, but it's very clear that that long-term home is not in Atlanta with the Hawks.